MJ, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make this loopy stitch chevron throw blanket. You can work with any worsted weight yarn to make this blanket. I actually have used a combination of Red Heart Super Saver as well as Craft Smart Value yarn. I really liked the bright crisp white of this yarn, so that's why I chose it. But you can use this, and the gray yarn is very similar. I think the Red Heart is just slightly lighter. So what you'll need to make a double queen size blanket is just over 13, almost 1400 yards of white, and you'll need about 1900 yards of gray yarn. Now the PDF pattern is available for purchase, and it will actually include several sizes and show you also how much yarn you need to increase the length of your blanket. So by doing repeats of our gray and white section. And to make a blanket, your double queen size, it's going to measure a 76-inch width so it can lay nicely across the bottom of your bed. And it's going to have a 44-inch length. So again, if you want to make your blanket go longer, each repeat is about 7 inches, so you can do additional repeats to make additional length to your blanket. I'll be working with a 9mm crochet hook, and I'll be holding together 2 strands of the yarn so that it's a bulky thickness. I've also added a little bit of fur trim to my blanket. This of course is optional, but if you decide to add the fur trim, you're looking for a super bulky weight fur yarn, and I'm using Loops and Threads. This is a Michaels brand fur yarn, and the color that I'm using is pink tipped brown. So our blanket pattern is worked in multiples of 17 plus 15. So I'm just going to show you on a swatch rather than working out the whole thing. So we'll begin by chaining 32. So that will be our 17 plus 15. So we'll work 1 single crochet in the second chain from the hook. So there's 1, 2. We'll work 1 single crochet in each of the next 5 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we'll work 3 single crochet in the next chain. 1, 2, 3. Now we'll work 1 single crochet in each of the next 7 chains. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and now we'll skip the next 2 chains. So 1, 2, and then we'll work 7 again in the next, or 1 in each of the next 7. So skip 2 and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now we'll work 3 in the next chain. So 1, 2, 3. And now we'll work 1 single crochet in the last 7 chains. Okay, so now we're going to skip the first stitch and we're going to do a tog over the next 2 stitches. So pull up a loop, go right through the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pulling through all 3. Now work 1 single crochet in each of the next 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now in the top peak here we need to add 3. So 1, 2, 3. Now work 1 single crochet in each of the next 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now we want to skip the next 2 stitches and then we'll work 1 single crochet in each of the next 7. So skip 2 and 1, 2, 7. And now we should be to our peak and we add 3 in that next stitch. 1, 2, 3. So now you have 7 stitches remaining. We'll work 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we'll do a decrease for the final 2. Then we'll turn and chain 1. Now we'll skip the first stitch and then we'll work 1 in each of the next 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we'll work 3 in the top. 1, 2, 3. Now we'll work 1 in each of the next 7. 1, 2, 7. And then we should be to our valley here where we'll skip the next 2 and then work 7. So basically we're doing 3 in our top, 7 down our sides. So when we have a valley, we're going 7, 7, skipping 2 at the bottom, 3 at the top. And if you're working obviously on a wider piece, you're just going to continue this all the way along, adding 3 up in the top. The rest of the The blanket follows this pattern. We'll just add in some color and loop stitches to change things up a bit. But for row 3, it's basically the pattern throughout. So now again, when we come to the end, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we decrease the final 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then a single crochet tog across the last 2 stitches. Chain 1 and turn. So now we're just going to do a repeat of row 3, and we want a total of 7 rows in our gray. So you can continue working those, and I will meet you up to show you how to work the white section of the blanket. Okay, so I'm finishing my 7th row, and this is the right side of our work. So I'm going to do my decrease at the very end, and now I want to bring in my white, and we're using 2 strands of our white yarn. I'm just going to pull some out. I'm working from the center of the balls, but when I'm working my loop stitches, I want it to be nice and loose, so it's not pulling on my fingers. So now we'll yarn over with the white, pull through, and you could very easily make this blanket using a smaller hook and just 1 strand. It will just take a little bit longer to work up, but you really don't need to do it bulky. It's up to you. Just do a gauge and then make the blanket as wide as you want in multiples of 17 plus 15. That's all you need to remember. Just make it as big as you want. Okay, so let's turn. You'll need to cut the gray yarn at this point. I'm not going to cut it because I'm just making a swatch, so I will pull this out after. But you'll cut your gray yarn, and now we are skipping the first stitch, and then we're going to work our loop stitch in the next stitch. So we're going to go through, hold the yarn up, take your hook, go around, twisting it, pulling it through the stitch, and I just grab that with my other fingers to make sure it stays over, yarn over, and pull through. So we're following our same pattern. We're working up 6 stitches. We're just doing them in loops. So hold that yarn up, push that hook right through, going to that side of the yarn, twisting it around so you've got your hook now able to grab those stitches, those loops, and pull them through, dropping that loop off. You don't grab it with your finger. Sometimes it pops back, and you really need to make sure it goes over. And you pull through. And it's nice if you can do a nice big long loop. Uses a little bit more yarn, but it's just nice and fluffy. So push through, holding your yarn. I hold it up as far as my finger will pull it up without doing a weird kind of stretch, and then just grab your hook around that way, twist it around, pulling it down. I've worked so many loops, I just automatically go and I grab that off my finger, yarn over, and then pull through. Go through the stitch, pull, and this is why I like to have lots, that it's not pulling, because if it's pulling, that just starts to really tire out your finger. So you want to pull that. So you make sure you work up your 6. And then we're putting 3, and now this is where it gets a little tricky. It's, well, not tricky, but it's squishy, trying to get 3 in there. But it is doable. So you do 1, go back, do 2, and go back down a 3rd time and make a third loop all in the same stitch. We have to follow our chevron stitch pattern throughout. So now we work 7 down the side, we skip our 2 on the bottom, work 7 up, do 3 in the top, and then work our 5 and do a decrease on the bottom. So same pattern, we're just now working across in our loops. So the loop stitch rows go a little bit slower. This blanket is a little bit of a labor of love. It does take a little bit to work it up. I've been working on mine for a little bit, amongst other things though. So working it with the 1 strand and the worsted would take even longer for myself, so that's why I chose to do it bulky. But if you have the time and it's easier on your hands to use worsted weight, then just go ahead and do 1 strand. Okay, so I'm getting to the end here and we need to do the decrease. So to decrease, I'm going to go through the first stitch and I'm just going to pull up a loop. Then I'm going to go into the next stitch and then make my loop stitch. Okay, and then pull through all 3. So I'm just going to show that to you one more time, just so you get it. So we're just going through the stitch, grabbing our loop so that we have 2 on the hook, go into the next one, and then hold your finger up and make that loop stitch. So going around, same as usual, pulling through, yarn over, and then pulling through all those loops on the hook. Okay, and then for this next row, chain 1 and turn, and then we're working single crochets. So the same as our gray pattern, work single crochets when you're on the right side of the work. And then when we get back to the wrong side, we'll do 1 more row of loops, and then we're going to change back to gray. So I'm going to work through this row and then I'll meet you up again. Okay, and when you get to the end, you decrease and then work back in the loop stitches again. And I'm not going to work through that again with you because I've already shown you how to work through your loops. So then what we're going to do, what we're going to have for the blanket that I've shown you, I'm working 6 sections of gray and 6 sections of white. So I'm ending with the white. So you can make your blanket any size, but if you're going with the pattern that I'm showing you, that's what you need to do. It's just repetitive. We're working the same stitch pattern. We're just doing 7 rows of gray, and then we do 3 rows of white, a loop stitch, a single crochet, and a loop stitch. And just continue until your blanket is large enough. Okay, so I have finished my blanket off with 6 repeat sections. So we're ending with our loop stitch. And now what you want to do is we're going to weave in all of these ends. So what we're going to do is weave our yarn in one direction. And I'm weaving the white through the white stitches, and the gray I'll weave through the gray stitches. And once you can just trim that. To add the fur trim to the beginning of the blanket, all I have done is joined my yarn here. So my right side facing, joining your yarn in, and then I'm just single crocheting along. Now I'm skipping the section right down the valley of each section here. So when you get to every valley, you'll be skipping that stitch. But other than that, you're just working it across. So I've worked 3 rows, so I've gone this way, I've come back working on the wrong side, and then I finished off the trim on the right side of my work. And I've used about 50 yards of fur yarn.